You guys got the wrong
Annette,
identities,
you're
man.
sitting in the wrong seats.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I switched you guys too. Look at that. I'm really out of
And
switch.
you caught it, very good.
Yeah.
Huh? Good.
You get it,
Mm.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our April zoning board meeting. I think that, call this to order. I think our first order of business tonight is going to be to approve our minutes from the March 17th meeting. So I make a motion to approve those minutes. Have a second by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So the agenda I have has a decision for Eric.
That was a typo.
That's, a typo we have. We have
Sorry, Jim.
Nice try, thank you.
All right,
No problem.
Mr. Young, you're gonna have to give us a little bit on that, I think. So our first one tonight is number one on the agenda. It's Eric Miller, 13 Stacy Drive. The applicant is requesting a variance from 197-35A to construct a pickleball court in the front yard where the accessory structures are specifically prohibited from being overlaid. And I know, you have to get a couple things for us.
Yep. So for the applicant, James Van Hume, 223 Mill Road, West Hampton Beach. You had asked a couple of questions, and I have some answers. We had given you an updated site plan showing some additional detail on the pickleball court itself, and as well as showing some proposed landscaping subject to the conditions you might impose if this is approved. Just as a reminder, this board approved quite a while ago a tennis court, the same variance for a tennis court. This is a much smaller feature. It's the playing surface is 880 square feet. I think the total square footage of the installation is 1,800 square feet. I hadn't submitted this earlier, but if I could, this is a more detailed. Or maybe I did give you that.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, okay. I thought I had not given a more detailed view of the court itself. But it's more in the nature of a sport court, pickleball court, than it is a tennis court. One of the questions that was asked as to whether or not the recess requirements of 197-63P attached, and I said no, but I think the answer still is no, but for the wrong reason. And in consulting with the building department, it appears that the policy of the building department is that structures of this nature, less than 2,000 square feet, are not subject to the recessing requirements, whereas the tennis court is. That's why what we are proposing here is not recessed. So that was, I think, basically the homework that you had given me. And based on the fact that you already granted this kind of relief here already. We had a discussion about the location of the court. Obviously, we could move it back, but the closer we move it to our house, the closer it gets to neighborhood houses as well. I think that putting it out where it is 25 feet off of the property line, 25 feet off of that road, with some appropriate landscaping.
The record that also satisfies all of the requirements for setbacks.
Yes, 20-foot setback requirement for an accessory structure, so we're actually 5 feet below what is required. So the only issue is that we're in the front yard.
This is in the Stillwater's,
Right, and I think we established that record last time, and I think I put most of that information into the record again this time.
I'm not sure which issue we need. The front door location. You know, however, the structure itself consists of not only the playing surface, but the fencing, netting, and everything else. So that is, you're not giving us 20 feet side yard or front yard line.
So I think the idea was to, if that's not what we've shown, then we can certainly move it over a little bit to provide for that. We're not looking for any relief for anything of that nature. Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah, I think, we should probably slide it over so that the fence is 20 feet away, which we will do.
Well, you may wanna recalculate, what that court will turn into be square footage wise, because it's not, again, just that plain surface, but it's an entire structure.
Right, if you,
It's gonna come up with more than 880 square feet.
yeah, it's 1,800 square feet.
Oh, it's 1,800.
Yes, it's 30 by,
Right, so
the fenced area is 30 by 60, as shown on the, as shown on this, as shown on this. So the playing surface is 880 square feet, but the fenced area is closer to 1,800 square feet.
All right, well, I'm looking at your site plan, it says 880 square
That
feet.
is the playing surface.
Right, well, that's not accurate. I mean, it's accurate for
Well-
plain surface, it's not accurate for site plan.
Okay, well, I can certainly amend that, since we're gonna try to go a little bit. Anyway,
Okay.
I'll probably slide it over so that the fence is 20 feet, because that's the actual setback
Right.
requirement. And, we'll have both
Mhm.
of those square footages put on the site plan.
Okay. I don't have any other comments except that.
And if you're inclined to close the hearing, we can provide that.
Say that again, Jim?
If we can provide that, hopefully we can close the hearing subject to our development.
Does there anybody have any comments, questions about, this particular application tonight? No? Okay, so I'll make a motion, we close this hearing for decision, as long as we get that updated site plan from you.
You'll have it next week.
Great, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Second by Joe, all in favor? We're good, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. All right, we're into our holdovers. Our first holdover, the Agri Dune Corporation, 95 Dune Road.
They just put in a request like at 4:30 to hold this over.
They did, okay.
Yeah, to next month. So they want to hold it over.
We're gonna hold it
to May.
over again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion then, that we go ahead and hold this over for all purposes. I have a second, please. Second by Ellen, all in favor? You all good on that? Good. Okay, West Hampton Beach Fire District, 92 Sunset Avenue. Applicant requests variances from 19730C9A to erect a digital ground sign with a setback of 7 feet, where the minimum required is 10 feet, 19730C9C for proposed sign area of 31.17 square feet, with the maximum permitted is 12 feet, and 19730D4 for a proposed sign capable of displaying animated images were specifically prohibited, and for 19730D15 for a proposed sign that is internally illuminated were also specifically prohibited. Good evening.
Good evening, how are you? Nice to see 3 of you again and 2 of you for the first time.
The gang's all here tonight.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure first that the board had received the rendering that had been submitted by the fire district since the prior hearing. Yes, that's it, exactly. I mean, it's about as good as we could get from the vendor, but it gives, I guess, an idea as to what we're looking at. These are the types of signs that are now somewhat ubiquitous across the island throughout fire districts and many schools as well. The reason the fire district is requesting this is so that they can provide critical information to the public in furtherance of its public mandate, which is public safety. These types of signs could be used for a variety of important functions, such as advertising of blood drives, COVID vaccination site, relief aid efforts. I understand that there was recently very successful Ukrainian aid drive. This would be something in furtherance of that type of effort as well. Amber alerts, road closures, weather advisories, public safety reminders such as changing of smoke alarm batteries, which is done seasonally, which I guess will be a little more difficult now that we're getting rid of daylight savings time, I understand. So people used to look at that as the way to change their batteries. Fire prevention tips. And also critically important to the fire district is, used for recruitment efforts as well, since you know that the people who are, members of the fire district are all volunteers. This would help them as well. Community spirit and goodwill as well. I know Mr. Pasca had, recommended last time that we also, provide an outline of what's the Monroe balancing test. Because what we're seeking here is, alternatively, a variance, but first and foremost, what we're seeking is an exemption of the, village code as it applies to this particular application, since it's a fire district and under the 9 factors of the Monroe balancing test, we believe that without question, the balance weighs in favor of exempting this particular application. I've prepared and asked permission to hand up to the board a memorandum outlining exactly what the Monroe balancing test is and how it should be applied here, if that's acceptable to the board.
Yes, thank you.
So essentially what we're seeking is under the Monroe balancing test, an exemption because this is directly in furtherance of the fire district's public safety mandate. And alternatively, if the board doesn't feel as if that those are grounds to permit the sign, then we're seeking a variance to do so. The sign, as
You're not just seeking one variance, you're seeking 3.
correct.
Clear on that.
Yes, exactly. This would be LED imaging, so the sign area is larger than is permitted under the code. The animated imagery is, would be an exception to the code where variance would be permitted, as well as the internal, illumination and the setbacks. The setback is, 7 feet. If necessary, I was told we can move it back a little bit more, but obviously this is the type of sign where the public needs to see it, so we would like it as close as we can to be seen by the public as they're passing by, both motorists and pedestrians. Does the board have any questions for me?
Yeah, well, you need some time to go through it.
Okay, sure, take your time. Just in summary, the Monroe balancing test hasn't actually been applied by this board in the past.
No,
Well, there was my understanding is that there was a 2016 determination to approve a prior application by the West Hampton Fire District for signage on the firehouse itself, and that was referenced in the decision.
It was not applied though.
It was not applied but referenced, okay. So
The
there's,
variance was granted, not, or did not find that Monroe applied.
okay, well, in this instance, we are requesting that it be applied and alternatively, of course, for variance. So, however the board sees fit to approve it, that's it's fine with us, provided obviously.
Now, let me ask you a question, on the Monroe balancing test. Are you requesting, us to look at that and move forward and okay the fire district, application, based on that?
Yes.
Without moving to the variance portion or?
No, we're seeking the alternative for variance, because we obviously think the Monroe balancing test applies as one municipality, rules, and it's not a blanket application, it's just specific to this particular application as it is applied to each specific application to see whether the balancing test weighs in favor of the municipality that's seeking an exemption from the governing municipalities' ordinances, which is what we're seeking here. And then we're seeking in the alternative, if the board does not feel as if the Monroe balancing test applies to this particular application, then we are in fact seeking a variance.
And would that be, a variance, each variance, itself, or just as a whole? As a whole application?
I think from your standpoint, you probably have to apply each of the three, requests to the whole application itself. So, this particular sign would seek the variance for those three applicable, codes.
You did mention that you could move the sign back further.
A little bit further, I'm not.
Just a little bit.
You know how much further it can be moved back? Foot or two?
No way. So, I mean, you're asking for 7 feet where you need.
We are asking for some,
Right,
yes.
I mean, 10?
10 feet, from my understanding, based upon the rendering, is gonna place it a little too far off. You know, I'm sure if the board felt 8 or 9 feet was appropriate, we could probably accommodate that. But I know the vendor had suggested this particular location. And, I know that the fire district agrees, since it's visible, and visibility, lack of visibility kind of defeats the whole purpose of this.
This particular sign, my understanding is that they're very, programmable.
Correct.
So, you know, there's so many different things that can be put on a programmable sign, and even the one at the school. You know, has those spinning things, you know, spin around, change the sign. You know, what would, you know, what you're putting on here is one thing, you know, blood drive, immunization sites, membership drives, but what's this gonna, what are we gonna be, are we gonna be watching cartoons? We're gonna have Roadrunner cartoons on this? Or is that-
Any of the programming on the sign has to be consistent with, or will be consistent with the public purpose for which the fire district is established, which I've outlined. So one of the purposes is public safety, so I hesitate to think that the fire district would have some type of display which would get somebody's attention to focus and perhaps not be safe. So, you know,
Okay.
it will be
I mean, that would
consistent
be
with
a pretty abstract, obviously.
Yes,
but-
I understand. I mean, the school is different, clearly. So, you know, these are types of signs that I guess in the past, you know, in response to a question last time, you know, why do you need this? I mean, start off with the crier, start off with the bells ringing for the fire department. We started off with, you know, these movable signs which are not, aesthetically pleasing, where people put up the actual, each, letter itself, and those can be changed and vandalized, etc. So this is something which would be, you know, aesthetically pleasing, consistent, with the fire district's purpose, and something which I think will enhance the beauty of the village. There's many other villages and municipalities that are using these signs, throughout both Long Island and the country as a whole.
I get that, and I feel strongly about getting the message out. You know, certainly this is not 1900s, you know, it's new day, with new technology. So my question is, you know, the size of the sign, it's, you know, it's almost 3 times the size of an allowed sign. You know, is there any movement, you know, on your part, you know, to get the message out, so we do a smaller sign?
And not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
I think that the way the signs are manufactured is consistent with the customary and standard for the industry practice, which is fire districts. So this is what's been used, you know, the vendor has suggested. So that's what was adopted by the fire district.
You know, when you say these signs are all over Long Island, I'm sure that's true. But there are a lot of things all over Long
That
Island.
you don't want to hear.
Yeah, that don't necessarily fit, you know, fit in with this village. That's what we've done this.
Well, I think the issue is that the people who would be in charge of the sign is the fire district, who are all, you know, active civic participants in West Hampton Village, and they share your stake in the village itself. So it's not like it's an outside commercial entity coming in seeking a sign for its own commercial display purposes. These are, you know, your fellow residents, your fellow citizens, the volunteer members of the fire department that are obviously keenly aware of what is appropriate.
No, I'm I'm sure they're gonna be great stewards of the sign, but you know, it's still 32 square feet, that's a huge sign. You know, and on top of that, you know, LED on top of it on two sides. So, you know, that is, you're gonna see that from, you know, you can see that message or messages, you know, from a long way. My only concern is, do we need 32 square feet of messages?
Again, the messages are all public safety, so part of it is, yes, I hope it is not disruptive, of course, but the whole purpose is to get the message out.
With the fundraisers that the fire department would do, would there ever be a time that they would consider doing selling advertising?
I don't believe so. This is solely for the purpose of the public safety message. I mean, perhaps, you know, congratulations to the graduates, happy 4th of July, something generic like that, but, no, not for commercial purpose. I don't intend to have my law firm advertising on there.
What is the size of the one at, the high school? I was asking Joe, do you know that it's a little smaller than the one that's proposed now?
I don't think it's small, I think
Is it about the same?
it's smaller.
Unless it's a little smaller.
Yes, more.
Yeah, it has-
If there's a capstone. to
Yeah.
it,
It's a tough one, you know. Who's,
I understand.
Yeah.
No, I do.
Who's the vendor?
I don't know offhand.
Will you refer to the vendor advising on location and size?
she has it here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Visual Information Services, they're the ones who put up the, Peace Club sign recently. Seeing that. It's approximately around the same size as that one.
You know when they put that up?
Just a few months past,
Within the past half year, I know that.
before 9/11, they were doing
The
something
Cogs had
special.
one for a year or more. Eastport has it, Riverhead has it, we're like the only ones that don't.
I have another question. You mentioned earlier about a variance that was filed back in, what was it,
2016.
and you said the Monroe rules did not apply at that time?
The Monroe test was argued, the board did not reach it because the board decided to grant the variances. So it was referenced in the decision, but it was not, that was not the basis of the decision.
So it wasn't applied, I misspoke, it was
Well, that
referenced. And again, from our standpoint, we believe Monroe balancing test applies, but if the board feels it doesn't and wants to approve it on a variance basis, obviously that's
Well, as long as you're here, why don't we go through that, you know, that, Monroe, balancing test, and see where it goes.
So I outlined the 9, considerations, the factors that the Monroe court held, which was a Court of Appeals decision in 1988 regarding, the county of Monroe and the city of Rochester and, approval relating to the airport, up there. So the court said that with respect to one municipality, in our case, the fire district, seeking an exemption from the code or zoning regulations of another municipality, in this case, West Hampton Beach Village, you should look at the nature and the scope of the instrumentality seeking immunity, the encroaching government's legislative grant of authority.
Well, let's stay on number 1, so,
Okay.
the nature and the scope of instrumentality seeking immunity. Okay, I get that.
Mhm.
The encroaching government's legislative grant of authority, you know, I'm sure you have that.
Mhm.
The kind of function or land use involved, you describe that. The effect local land use regulations would have upon the enterprise concerned. Okay, we know what that is. And
It's, can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
I haven't had a chance to read this memo. It's a lot more nuanced than the way you're running through each thing. It's not a matter of just saying, check, 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 check. It's
Okay.
a matter of looking at each element and considering it carefully and, you know, comparing and contrasting the different benefit. And you may have to do it in several different ways depending on which of the codes they're seeking immunity from. They may not all balance the same way.
okay,
You know, you might find that, I'm not saying this so that you should find this, but you might find that the prohibition against animated signs weighs a different way than the setback or the
Yeah.
size thing. You're gonna have to go through each of these and do a balancing test very carefully. So I just don't wanna get caught up in, you know, check, 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 check,
Okay.
and,
Got it.
treating it as a simplistic kind of thing, 'cause it's not. This is a very nuanced test.
okay.
Can I add one question to that? Generally overall, is this a municipality developing within another jurisdiction, or is it a municipality developing within its own jurisdiction?
The first way you put it,
It's the first,
the first way you put it,
okay.
cause it's
Within, so it
them,
is within
it's
its
the
own.
fire district coming to the village seeking an immunity from the village's zoning code.
For construction of, signage on the fire district.
Even though it's its own jurisdiction.
Correct,
so-
'cause we're
Even
part
though
of
it's
the-
in,
the
within its own
large-
jurisdiction.
But it doesn't have zoning powers, so that's why the two intersect there. It has its own powers, the village has zoning powers, they're seeking an immunity from the village's zoning powers.
Thus, it's a balancing test.
Yeah, no,
Have you ever thought about going directly to the trustees of the village to get immunity from this? I mean, I know you come to the zoning board and ask for anything. That's the right of any resident that come to the zoning board, they can request anything they want, doesn't mean you're gonna get it, but they can request. Have you ever thought about going, because having these signs specifically prohibited and having them amortized out of the village years ago, it would seem to me that would have been a place to start.
Now, I have not, thought about going to the trustees. It's a viable suggestion. But again, this is not these signs, with all due respect. This is, you know, particularly for the fire district as opposed to for a commercial purpose or any other
I
purpose.
definitely understand that. I think, you're giving us homework. All right, I think, we need a little time to digest this stuff. So I
Are
don't
you
think.
gonna open it for public comment this evening, or?
Well, we definitely are, but I don't know if I want to close it tonight.
No.
I think that, we wanna go through this, and just in case we have any follow-up discussion or questions afterwards, I'd like to hold this over for all purposes, but I would have anybody in attendance that has a comment, question, anything that they wanna bring up about this application, now is our time. Anybody? Please,
Thank you, please.
thank you.
Come up,
or?
Yeah, please, come up there, just because we're live.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Mauro Di Benedetto, 21 Adam Lane, West Hampton Beach. I'm also chief of this fire department. Listening to the board, I find it almost mind-boggling that you would think that we're gonna be putting up cartoons or we're going to be putting
No,
up
I was being
soliciting.
facetious.
But we are all volunteers that are here. We're volunteering right now. I have a thriving practice going I make time for this village and for this community. I think having the sign up would just get our message out a little clearer. We could, you can't make it smaller, because if you can't see it, what's the point? And it's not enormous, it's the size of every other one that you passed coming here. I just don't see why you're dragging your feet. I could see if Rite Aid wanted to get something, or one of our numerous realtors. But we're here for the community. We're not here for ourselves. Every call we go on is for the community. For you to drag your feet and cost us money because of all these delays, prices just keep going up. For this to keep happening, think about it. I mean, come on. If we're here, if something happens, we're leaving right now, and we're going to that fire. So, you gotta think about what we're asking for and who's asking for it. That's what we're trying to do.
No, I think we're very carefully thinking about those things.
Well, it seems
I
like you're just
respectfully
getting
disagree
very
with you
nitpicky.
on that, because we have a process we have to go through. And we take this very seriously, and we're here to support our village also.
I understand, but you should take into account who's asking. And
Truthfully,
I don't see how this is.
Sir, in
going.
all respect, if it wasn't for who's asking for this hearing would have been open and closed last month with a denial. Okay, so I wanna go on record as saying that you're not being fair to the semi-judicial process that we have to go through here.
How long has this been going on?
This is our second hearing.
Okay, no,
This is our second hearing.
Okay, so that's 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay, so this has been going on for 2 months, and it should have been longer, but it was put off because something wasn't put in late, so it got pushed to 3rd month.
This has been
But
going
we-
on 2 months.
Sir, we
And
also
you know what?
asked for this last month. We got it today. Our process is to get these things in advance, so it's time to read them. You know, it's
There's
not fair to,
something-
you're criticizing the
I am
board.
giving, you wanted public comment.
We got a
I'm
multi-page
public.
memo from
This
your
is my
attorney
time.
that we haven't had a chance to read.
Alright.
That's not fair. I mean,
It just seems like you're swaying towards one way, and I'm just trying to push you back the other way.
Well, we appreciate that, we can agree with that, and you know, my comment about the cartoons was to make a ridiculous point. That wasn't meant to be anything insulting to the fire district. My son-in-law is a member of this fire department. You know, I can't love anybody more than that. I respect everything that you guys
Right,
do.
then you
But
should
we have an
understand what we're trying
obligation
to
to the village, and we take it very seriously.
We take our positions very seriously.
So then we can all understand each other, and we're gonna be as fair as we can. And this is one way, and as Mr. Pastor just said, we just got this memo handed to us tonight. You know, we asked for it last month. We requested stuff to come at least 10 days early, so we have time to do that, so we don't have to go through this process. Because we have businesses too that we go to.
Oh, well, we're not a business, but.
No, but we have, like you said, you have a thriving practice night, don't know what that is, but we all have obligations. What?
The dentist down the road across.
No plugs now.
Oh, no. I'm out of the village, and that's fine. But, you know, that's what this is what we're trying to do.
But with all due respect, you know, there's no one that has more protocol than the fire department. I know, just, give us the same respect. We're volunteers to a certain degree. We spend a lot of time, on these applications. Like the chairman said, if this were an application, for a business, one meeting and done and gone. We want to do it, fair. We're on your side. We all either live in the village or we all live in the village.
We all live.
And we have businesses. We have a lot of, a lot of stake in the village here, just like you.
Well, appreciate you.
We appreciate your passion also.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Anybody else? So just gonna hold this over. Okay, so I'll make a motion, we hold this over for all purposes. Second by Joe, second by Joe, all in favor? All right. So our next, holdover here is Denise Burgess, 28 Meadow Lane. Applicant requests variances from 197-6E-A1 to legalize the finished attic that represents a third story with a maximum stories permitted is 2.
Good evening for the applicant, James N. Hume, 323 Mill Road, West Hampton Beach. So we were here last time trying to legalize this converted three-story, and we went through the scenario as to how we believe it occurred, and it had occurred prior to my client purchasing this of their property. One of the questions that came up, maybe not overly important, but how this came to be discovered and why we're dealing with it and whether we're about to sell the house after we deal with this. And the answer to the last part of that question is there are no plans currently to sell the house. What occurred here was my client owned this house and owned a house adjacent, or across the street, not to get rich, but they were actually thinking about selling this house when they discovered this issue. And so they want to cure this issue, but in the meantime, they sold the other house. So they satisfied their need to get rid of one of the two properties. And their plans, at least at the current time, are to retain this property, and they would like to retain it with the third story as converted prior to their purchasing, as we discussed last time. Now, my client had indicated to me that she had some photographs of what the premises looked like when they purchased it. We submitted them, but unfortunately not too many of them, I believe we submitted the photographs, but not too many of them were actually of the space in question. There was one photograph which was a window, and that's definitely a window that was upstairs in that premises, in that converted space. And then a set of stairs which matched completely the photographs that I submitted last time as they exist now. So certainly, if it were an attic, that's an awfully nice set of stairs going up to the attic. In addition, the photographs were accompanied by an affidavit from my client indicating that the way that it looks now is the way that it looked when they purchased the property. The other value of the photographs, I think, is just to show that the exterior is exactly the same when they purchased it as it is now. So one of the things that I had mentioned was there was certainly no changes to the exterior portions of this property subsequent to their purchase. Just trying to demonstrate further that what it is today is what it was when my clients actually purchased the property. And whatever was done, they didn't do it. So the other thing that you had asked us about was to try to get an estimate for cost of converting the converted space back into an attic. And I don't know if each of you want a copy, but the price came to about $30,000 to put it back.
What was the comparison? We had to sprinkle it?
I have that coming, that's next.
Okay.
That's next. So this is a little shy of, thanks. A little shy of $30,000 to convert it back.
Thank you.
One more?
One more? Oh, sorry. I thought I had up enough. Brad, would you like one? Okay. So it's not terrible, but not an insubstantial cost to my clients to do that. Well, I don't know if it's interesting or not, but the cost to sprinkle the entire building would have to be sprinkled, as I understand it. The estimate comes to a little north of $83,000. So I'll add that too. It is a very much of an estimate because until you actually do it, you don't know how many walls you have to open up and how many walls you have to repair and all that kind of stuff. But the overriding issue there is having to sprinkle the entire building as opposed to just the third floor. My clients are aware of these numbers and are still interested in going forward because they believe that the converted space adds value to their use of the house and adds value to the, did I give you enough? I think, and adds value to the property itself going forward. So those were the issues, and you know, in summary, basically, the granting of this variance won't change the neighborhood, the appearance, the functionality of this house, one bit. We're asking that
So
you,
your client is willing to spend this much money, knowing that if they get legalized?
when currently asked,
comply with
yes,
the code?
yes. Well, they sold the other house, I guess that's they see this as having value, to their life, you know, they're living there and to, the ultimate value of the house itself.
Okay, Jim, thank you. Hold on. That's what we were waiting.
Yeah, that's, I think that's everything you wanted.
Anybody, Joe or John, anything on this? No? Okay. Anybody? All right, Jim, thank you. I'm gonna make a motion to close this hearing for determination of our next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Second by John. All in favor? Good? Okay. New applications, Judy Madden, 64 Brook Road. Applicant grants variances from 197-35C to install an accessory swimming pool with setbacks of 13.7 and 15 feet, and the minimum required is 20 feet. Hi.
Good evening, members of the board. Steve Caputo, 120 Mill Road, West Hampton Beach, New York, for the applicant for 64 Brook Road. Actually, this is an application for side and rear setback forgiveness for a swimming pool. We're asking for setback relief to 15 feet on the side, 13.7 feet on the rear. Due to the unique nature of the property, we are significantly and sufficiently far enough away from the neighbors. As you can see from the survey, the rear property line is not straight, puts us at kind of an angle to the neighbors. We don't have a reasonable alternative or anywhere else on the property to place a pool other than where we have shown you on the survey. We don't believe that this will have an adverse impact on the neighborhood, and the relief is not substantial, and it is consistent with other homes in the area. Having said that, the application is for side and rear setback, so we have revisited this on our side, and we are able to move that pool so that we would no longer have to ask for rear setback relief at all. And I have updated surveys that I can give. I think I have them updated. Do you
More
have
updated than this one?
showing 20 feet?
This one shows 20 feet to the rear, I mean, so rear shape.
Yeah, we have 20 feet.
Oh, you have it already. Okay,
Wanna
there was
take
some
a look and
indication
make
that
sure
maybe
we're
I
talking about
did,
the same
you didn't
thing?
have that one. Those are the cards.
Oh, thank you, Steve.
That is the,
November 2nd.
correct, that is the correct one. Okay, there was some question as to whether you
For
have
your
accepted it.
application, you're asking for,
It's asking if
for rear yard, but now you're saying you don't need that.
we don't need that. We don't need that.
We don't need
Right
the
now,
rear
all we
setback.
need is the side yard setback of 15 to 15 feet.
Okay, you know the history of this, right? This property's gotten 2 variances already recently.
I'm aware that there are variances, yes.
Yeah, they had a couple recently, and they had asked for a pool once before, but they withdrew that pool portion from the application, because they had to meet 20% setback.
Right. And so, at least for the rear yard, we were able to get a pool, unique shape, I must admit, it is a unique shaped pool. But it gets us to 20 feet
To get the 20-foot setback.
on the rear.
So where are you gonna put the pool equipment?
Well, the pool equipment would have to go to the east of the pool, and it would have to be somewhere closer to the house going east.
Looks like the other end on the west
it proposing that side to 15, but I would anticipate that the board would rather not give us forgiveness for the pool and the pool equipment. So if we had to move the pool equipment, we could. We could go east of the pool if we had to.
We have plenty of room.
That's why we can go on that side of it if we have to.
With the change in the plans, did this change at all, or just the location?
Just the location.
The dimensions are the same?
Dimensions
what's
are
on-
exactly the same, right? That's the updated pool with the unique sizing.
Well, let me ask you a question. The 15-foot side yard, is butted up against a property, to the west, right there, where they have their pool and their recreational, their backyard is 15 feet away. You could put a traditional shaped pool in here, 15 by 30, with an interior staircase. You have a 4x8 staircase here that you can eliminate, put an interior steps into the pool, make a 15 by 30 pool, slide that to the east, and that would, and at that point, you would probably be looking for a variance, a rear yard variance of say 4 or 5 feet. That's,
Our steps are on the east side right now. The steps on the pool on the east side, if we shift the pool to the east, which is what you're suggesting, we get even narrower as we go east. So we need more forgiveness if we go east.
well, you're gonna need, if the steps on this pool are extended steps, they're not interior steps. There's a 4x8 staircase. It's on this pool. If you put interior steps, a corner staircase, preferably, you can use that square footage, in a better way. So now you're not extending it another 4 feet to the east.
And then you would like us for the pool to move eastward as well.
Well, this is just my suggestion. I'm one person on board.
Hold
You
on
know,
now, we've already established with this
I think
past hearing that we don't wanna have less than 20 feet from here.
I feel that the impact, to the neighborhood is less, to the rear yard than to the side yard.
But I think the board had established prior that they did not want to give forgiveness from the 20 feet along the rear yard.
It's up to you.
Which is why we have the unique size of the pool, so we're getting rear forgiveness out of the equation. We're just looking at side forgiveness of about 6 feet, 6.5 feet. If we move the pool further to the east, now we're looking for rear forgiveness, which my impression from prior decisions was that wasn't happening. Without saying it in that many words, but I mean, that's pretty much what it said.
Well, for me, giving up, 5 feet on this side yard, when you have another property with their backyard, butting up against yours, that's.
But we have a property on the north side too, though, the property on the rear yard, that we have another property on that side as well.
I believe you've got a building or something on that property line, right next to the
Shed garage.
Yeah.
Again, I was just
I'm
following.
just throwing it out there.
I'm just following earlier directives from the board that they did not want another visit on, rear yard setback, so that's why we went the only place that we thought we had it, the shop, which is going on the side. Again, we're open to anything, but we were kind of told not to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's a new day as far as I'm concerned.
And I appreciate it.
Had the old survey. You got the old survey for that? keeping shade cool that
Yeah.
we proposed years ago.
which I think was going to be 12.5 feet from the rear property.
That was gonna be,
Was it? It was pretty close. An old kiddie pool, the original one, I think was, yeah, that was much closer. This is Mrs. Madden. the homeowner,
Yeah,
by the
well,
way.
I-
The board understands who this is.
we,
Person who was working on the house,
Come on, come on.
the person who was working, renovating, proposing renovation, he was the one who told the surveyor to plot it, and it just got put there, like I didn't even see it beforehand. So when I mentioned it to him, and I said, it's not close, he said, no, that's okay, they'll tell you what to do when you get there, meaning that you would then advise me where to move it. I'm just being honest with you,
yeah, no,
that's
I
what
think
happened,
that, yeah,
cause I questioned it right off.
right. We have the minutes from the last meeting, so we have refreshed.
Oh,
our
okay,
memory.
so yeah,
Oh, yeah,
so the minutes are in
absolutely.
there,
Yeah.
that's really,
I have the minutes,
I
I
didn't
have
ask
the,
you.
decisions, you know exactly what it was, and you withdrew the pool at that time. With
Right.
the understanding that if the redesign would come back, it would perform.
I was really concerned about at that time, the renovation was like number one, so I didn't want to go for too much at that
Right.
time.
What we're concerned about is you have houses, you know, in the pool. And, with the house to the north, that's why we were so concerned with the full set. Okay, and that was the established. Then, now you're coming back with, unique shaped pool that you wanna have side yard set. We designed, huh?
Pool company.
So,
Did they tell you that this is gonna cost you probably 35% more than the, than a traditional pool? Now, this pool is gonna be a lot more expensive than a traditional pool. The pool cover, the pool construction, the pool liner, plus it's not even gonna look like that.
Well, for safety, I was wanting to get, those automatic pool covers, and I can't with the milkshake pool, I just felt when I wasn't there that I could close it, but I can't do that with this. So this is preferable for me, to 15 by 30.
so this pool is 32 feet, 16 by 30 feet.
Well, there's two different sizes, and
I
on the
understand.
survey it shows one thing, and then on the plans it shows another size.
Also, which one is?
My suggestion would be this, I mean, obviously some of the board members, think a little differently than I do. You may wanna, either amend this or alternate, alternate plan, just to float it and see where it goes.
With your suggestion of moving it east.
Moving it east, keep that 20-foot, side yard. And
Rear yard.
no, side yard.
He wanted it was gonna move us east, which means I'll now have to ask for rear yard forgiveness, but I won't ask for
We already
side.
established, past meetings.
I was pretty sure they're not gonna let me come back and ask for, I mean, I can come back and ask, but I pretty much, I answered.
Okay, you,
So, when you restrict the pool, you make it small, you have a very small area to try and get pool. Make the pool smaller. Still have a pool, it'll be smaller. You know?
I wouldn't spend that money, I'm just being honest with you, I wouldn't spend that money on something that's 10 feet on one side and.
Well, you know. I know we had quite a hearing on this last time, in 2000. Sure. But we did talk about that, you know. The problem with things like this is we have neighbors involved. Okay, and that's why we have setbacks that we have. So, unfortunately, your piece of property is very small in the backyard, and it's really not conducive to the pool. Now, we have a magnificent body of water not that far from your house. So, I would,
Well,
we went through this, I remember we went through this about 4 months before.
And I think somebody mentioned the shed, there is that shed in the backyard, so they, up against the property. That may be easy to see it. See on the sides, they're open, so it's not that open.
The property, she's referring to the property to the north.
well, when this package is put together, was since it was a variance previously, the variance need to get put into the printed package so that the board members can review that variance, and make it part of the information that they're looking at in the application. That was not, in my package, it may have been in the select board member's package, so I received that this evening. I don't really have a chance to look at that for the minutes that are connected to. So I would personally like this held over until the next meeting, so I can review it and make a proper
Just a point of reference, with the application, it does say that any prior variances granted need to be included with the application. They weren't in this case, so that's why Joe has had to change the previous. I think you're just up against a hard situation here when you don't have room for a pool back there. Trying to squeeze in a 16 by 32 foot pool, it's a little bit, it's a big pool. I know it tapers down, but it's still a big area and a big pool, so. And I know past hearings, you're just, the rear yard setback is just not something that applies to the property.
Would the board entertain a modified plan that was somewhat smaller than 16 to 32, but still within the 20 feet on the side yard? Right now, I need 6.5 feet on the side. Would they, I'm not asking for commitment, I'm just saying, would you entertain it if we modified it to show that the forgiveness is, we're still going to need forgiveness on the side, but certainly less than 6.5? Or is this becoming a hard no, if I may ask that question?
Our job is to minimize the variance. We always try and minimize the variance. So if you're able to minimize it, cut it down, it's something we would definitely entertain. It's not gonna be a hard no, absolutely not.
Okay.
But what, I think they would establish a previous hearings years ago that you really want.
So then I would request that we set this down for an additional date so that we have time to revisit the pool plan to see if we can get something that would be more acceptable to the board on that side.
Before I hold it over, I wanted to see if there's any comments. I think Mr. Manshewitz might have something to say. Okay, so let's just give her a minute and then we'll get back.
Suzanne Mensch, 50 Sunset Avenue, West Hampton Beach, here on behalf of Greg and Andrea Galushin, which are the north property owners, 98 Beach Road. Unfortunately, this just came to me today, and I had the survey that was sent to my clients in the mail, so I was here primarily to address the rear setback issue. So it sounds like we have already kind of tackled that.
Well,
so I'll,
they revised it,
yes.
they did that, then, the board, was throwing out an alternative,
Yes.
and withdraw it, bouncing back and forth with different things.
So I appreciate the comments that you've made on the rear setback, and I'll absolutely share them with my client, and I will connect with Steve prior to the future date. So that way I can share any comments from my clients
clear on this, so I'll make a motion, we hold this over for all purposes. Second by John, all in favor? Okay, number 6, Robert Schoenthal, 22 Bayfield Lane. The applicant requests variances from 197-60 in conjunction with a proposed subdivision that would create a resultant side setback of 22.8 feet with a minimum of 30 feet is required.
Richard T. Hakley, 48 F Main Street, West Hampton Beach, for the applicant. What we have here is we have a piece of property in Bayfield and Stevens, which is 97,000 square feet, which is 1.5, it's a lot more than the 40,000 square foot requirement in the district. What we wanna do is we wanna subdivide the property into 2 lots. Now, in order to do that, we could have put a straight line down somewhere over in there, which would have created the vacant lot at 38,000 some odd square feet. Or we could come up with a plan that would put, showing to you, where the vacant lot is 40,000 square feet, and the other lot is about 55,000 square feet. As a practical matter, and I have 2 copies of part of the survey, the total area of the variance is like 320 square feet out of the 57,000. The problem with this property is that the rear of the house has a mud room and a room for your utility. That sticks out from the rear of the property, which creates the problem as far as trying to create 2 20,000 square foot lots with a very straight line down the middle. But the only areas where the variance is involved is what I'm showing you on that. The rest of the property would be in compliance with the code. In addition, most of the front yard is 50 feet, so a good portion of that flare that comes in would be part of the front yard that you can't build on. The same thing in the rear, you have a rear 50-foot rear yard setback, and the flare is in there. So it really has no impact upon anything other than the rear of the existing building, and that is not, it's part of the house, I'm not disputing that, but it's used as a mudroom and for utilities. So I don't think it is a substantial variance that is gonna impact anything as far as any of the neighbors are concerned.
What about the secret determination?
Oh.
Is it secret? Doesn't the planning board have to give us a secret determination on this, a subdivision?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so. I actually think your only variance is the setback variance?
Yeah.
For the proposed new line?
Yeah.
Right? I think that's probably type 2.
The subdivision action is,
I have an application
Yeah,
pending, or I
I'm
submitted
asking this board for
Correct.
Yeah,
subdivision.
well, it's
Yeah.
it's
think,
like an
Well, it hasn't come before them yet.
the
Unlisted
subdivision
action.
line
Excuse
causes
me?
the
It's an
variance.
unlisted
I
action,
don't
has to
see
be
how you
some
get
kind
off.
of a secret,
I would-
planning,
I would have planning
subdivision,
board do
it's an unlisted
secret
action.
first, but.
In my opinion, I think so. No.
I,
You
so
have
I'm
to
asking,
ask your diligence. I don't think in this case, based upon what is involved.
If this comes to be, constructed on this lot that you're creating, or they get a ruling.
Not at the present time, Joe, but they would have to be moved at some point in time, and that is something I was figuring I would discuss with the planning board as to, well, there's only one structure that really would have to be moved, and that's the tennis court right now complies, but it wouldn't comply as a separate lot, because it would be partly in the front yard and partly in the rear yard. But I thought I would discuss that with the planning board, to let them make a determination as to when. But I don't think under any circumstances those structures should be removed before my client sells the property and splits the property up. If he keeps the property as it is, for the next year or so, I don't think there would be any reason to do it. I think it should come, those structures should be, taken into consideration when a building permit is issued or a CO is issued, before a CO is issued for the vacant lot.
Well,
They wouldn't let me see
it'd have to
They
be,
wouldn't have CO status.
I think it'd have to be dealt with at the time of subdivision. You have to deal with it one way or another
I said with
before.
the planning board. What I said to them is I thought, as far as what we would do with it, it would be discussed with the planning board.
Yeah, but,
But you wouldn't
say,
have-
if the
you wouldn't
planning
have
board, I'm sorry, no, I didn't mean to.
But you wouldn't have any CO status, you know, for these won't be, you know,
What, they won't be what?
they won't be allowed structures on this property.
As when and if we have a planning board approval. Okay, as of right now, even if I got the variance, it's still.
Okay, all right, I understand.
And it'd still be in the same name, it'd still be
Okay.
all purposes, it's gonna be a single, there's gonna be a point in time where it's not gonna be a single lot. I agree with that, it's just when that would be.
Okay.
If he sells one of the lots off, then the issue comes up, and that's what I was gonna discuss with the planning board.
I think it'd have to be dealt with before a map gets signed.
Before what?
A map gets signed, because the second a map gets signed,
I
he
said
can
that,
sell it.
I said the planning board, and a map would be signed by the planning board, right? So,
Yeah, but the planning board's not gonna be able to sign a map unless either you choose to remove those structures, or you get a variance from this board to allow them
if
to
we,
stay.
if we have to do that, we would, to allow them to remain,
Yeah, we just, this board just dealt with an application like that to allow a tennis court to be on an adjacent parcel as a standalone structure. And it was done, it went through the process, but I don't see any way where the planning board could sign a map where there are structures on one of the lots that become non-conforming the day they sign the map. So you have to deal with it at some point before that.
at some point before that, we would have to come back before this board if we wanted to,
Either
or
come,
remove the structure.
yeah, right,
But we're not at that,
okay.
we're not at that point right now.
As long as you know that that's gotta be dealt
Well,
with.
I assumed we had to deal with it, yes. In some manner, but I didn't think we had to deal with it today with this board, because all we're doing is asking for the variance. We're going to the planning board, I have to deal with the planning board, that's what we're gonna do. And if they're gonna require me to come back here, we're gonna hold on to the land that long, we'll have to come back here. But you only have a certain period, as long as the variance is gonna last in this village, without coming back before the village to get it renewed. I think the code has a 2-year limitation on it, so we have limitations on what we're doing under any circumstance.
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I'm not so sure, but it's okay.
Okay. Well, once this gets split up and becomes a, structure on a vacant piece of property, that'll have to be dealt with.
That's what I'm saying.
So let's just deal with what's before us right now.
So
Okay.
if you wanna talk about seeker again,
Yeah.
you asked a question. You could do uncoordinated review on this and make your own secret determination, or if you want, you could assume that the planning board is going to do secret review and do a coordinated one. It's up to you. Do you have you wanna make a suggestion, or?
For purposes of this particular application and what I'm asking for and the relief that's requested, it would seem to me you could do your own secret review, and if the planning board doesn't like what it is, they could change it. This is a 2-lot subdivision in the ultimate. At the present time, all we're asking for is a 7-foot side yard setback for a total of 325 square feet on a 97 square foot piece of property. So you could do your own review and you can make your own secret determination.
I don't care, I don't.
Okay.
Okay?
Anyone else have any comments?
I was gonna get to that. You can rest assured.
Rest assured.
How did I know that?
Huh?
How did I know that?
Because we wondered why I was here. Joan Levan, 17 Onet Road, West Hampton Beach, and I wish I went to law school, but I get this, so here we go. I have some concerns about the 40,001 square feet that's gonna be the subdivision. I don't know if you can tell on the survey, but it butts up to my property. Secondly, there's, comments about, the character of the neighborhood. If you go from the Onek Road in Bayfield down and around Stevens right to the end of Jessup, there are 4 properties, mine included, that are over 90,000 square feet. And it's beautiful. It's referred to as the estate section. Anyway, other than that, all of the neighbors that are in the area are not here. They're not here at all in the winter, unfortunately. I reached out to a few of them, and they asked if this would ever get held over, because they would like to be here. And I said, I don't know any of those kind of rules. But any of the, buildings that are single-family buildings, their lots are 44,500, square feet, 45,077, 44,839, 65,358. 40,000 would be the smallest, lot in the whole neighborhood. I will tell you, there is one lot that's smaller. It was grandfathered in, and that was at 37,000, and it's been grandfathered forever. Brad, I don't know when they changed the code to be 40,000, and this is just 40,001. And it concerns me, and the few people I spoke to, it concerns them too.
Why is it concerned? I'm confused, because this is going to be a conforming lot. The code requires a minimum of 40,000.
Yes, I know.
Which this is going to be, so what is the concern?
Well, I have a personal concern, because it's right up against my
So
property.
it's your neighboring property?
Yes, and I'm concerned about privacy issues, etc. I'm also concerned because I don't know, I'm not a builder, but I don't know what kind of a structure would go on the 40,000 square feet. And I'd like to know how this progresses next. Does he get the variance now? Do you think about it? Does it get held over? Can other people come to another meeting? And how far along to the building department?
Well, this type of a subdivision, since he has the property, it's just a matter of the planning board basically approving it, because we're not dealing with wetlands,
No, I understand.
So what the only issue before us tonight is that to do this, one of the, small part of the structure of the existing house is going to be, less than the minimum side yard setback. So it's really kind of a de minimis variance, part of it.
So,
But 40,000 feet,
I understand, it's approved.
that's,
That I get.
so as far as what happens next, well, the process is the same as any building that would happen in any part of the village.
Okay.
They would have to apply for a building permit, they would have to, meet all the setbacks. There's height requirements that they couldn't exceed. This is not gonna be anything that's gonna be detrimental, that I can see. Except that, I understand you're used to a big area, but, this is gonna be within the code of West Hampton Beach. And I understand the estates, and I understand.
Right.
I can say something helpful too, is you're entitled to come to the planning board meetings
Oh, I will.
and
And
voice
I
your
will.
opinion there, because they're gonna have a sort of a different review that goes on. But what this board is reviewing is a very small piece of it, so feel free to come to the planning board meeting.
If I heard something from another, applicant narrative about how many variances someone gets. So if he gets this variance, it's fine. When they go to build, does that have anything to do with how many variances he may apply for?
No, it doesn't, but I can tell you that someone going on a conforming piece of property in the village, you gotta really have a pretty darn good reason why you need to have a variance
When you go to build.
Yeah, that's not something that we are, apt to look upon too favorably. You can have a 40,000 square foot building lot, you don't need any variances for anything. Well, if they do, they have to come to us and,
Okay.
we're not above the stamp up here.
No, I don't think you are.
We live in the village, we're very concerned with everything that goes on.
Yeah, I know.
So, yeah, I think that, I think we could sleep good tonight.
Oh, I sleep good every night. Are you kidding me?
Okay.
Appreciate it, thank you.
You're very welcome. Anybody else? Mr. Hickley, are you finished?
I'm finished. I don't have anything to say.
Okay, I think we can, make a motion, we go ahead and close this hearing for determination. Second by Jimmy, all in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Okay. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight.
Just a few more minutes.
You've heard that one before, haven't you? Okay, here we go. All right, Bella 165 LLC, 165 Dune Road. The applicant requests variances from 197 AD to construct additions resulting in a proposed building area lot coverage of 30.3% of the lot, with the maximum permitted is 20%, with proposed front yard setback of 50.2 feet, where the minimum required is 75 feet. Also from 197 AD to construct roof over entry with a side yard setback of 18.5 feet, with the minimum required is 20 feet, with a proposed combined side yard setback of 33.6 feet, where the minimum required is 50 feet. Also from 197 AD for a proposed rear yard square off addition with a rear yard setback to Tesla Dune of 66.9, where the minimum required is 75 feet, and from 197.29 one, and proposed additions are located within a required front yard, 15.2 proposed, 75 required, and also with a required side yard, 15.1 proposed, 20 required, representing a non-conforming increase in degree of non-conformity of a building with non-conforming Okay.
For the applicant, James Inhume, 323 Mill Road, West Hampton Beach. Also with me tonight is Paul Russo, who's the architect, so in case there's any questions about the architectural aspects of this project. I agree, the list sounds like a lot.
Yes.
And I'm gonna spend a few minutes convincing you that it's really not that much. That these are all little tiny bits and pieces just to make the house a little more square and a little more livable. And that's really what this is about. So anyway, just a little background. This lot came into existence as a result of a subdivision in 1980. At the time the subdivision was granted, and really at the time the house that's there now was built, the code was a little different than it is now. First of all, the lot size here is only 75 feet, but that was the requirement back in 1980. The upland lot size is 50,000 square feet. There wasn't an issue with upland versus total area and coverage and those kind of things in those days. So the coverage that existed at the time the house was built was well under the then required 20%. The house was also built to the required side yard and rear yard and front yard side yard setback requirements of that time, which were 15 feet and 40 feet for the individual and total side yards. So, as is shown on the survey that was submitted here, the existing there is a two-story single-family residence with deck, pool, and a walk, all of which are covered by certificates of occupancy, and all were built prior to the significant zone changes to this part of the world in 1998. what we're proposing is some additions, to the house, to just make the house a more reasonable shape, is one with due respect to the architect, to make a more sensible, design. And that has triggered, a number of variances, all of which, are relatively small in nature. And I thought that there's a couple of ways to take a look at that. And the first way I wanted to do is to look at it with, the site plan on which I have identified the various variances and, how I can, show you how minimal in nature they are.
Thank you.
So, the first variance is a lot coverage variance, part of which derives from the expansion of the deck to allow coverage of 29.7 as compared to the 20% that's allowed. However, I would point out to you that, the current lot coverage is, 26.4%. So we're looking to add, something less than 500 square feet to the overall coverage from what legally exists there now, to what will be there if all the variances are granted. And as I pointed out, when this house was first built, the comparison, the lot coverage comparison didn't relate to the upland area, but it related to the entire area. And so if you look at the entire area, which is 50,000 square feet, both the before and after would have been well under the required 20%. So the applicant is burdened by the change in rules as opposed to as time went on. But that's the first variance. The second variance has to do with the front yard setback of 50.2 feet, and that's labeled as number 2 on the map that I just handed you. But that is compared to the existing, and the required is 75 feet, but the real comparison here is to the 51.2 feet of the existing structure. And as you can see, there is a, let's see, what is the total? A 7 square foot plus a 5 square foot, so 12 square feet of additional space added to the front of the house to account for that 1 foot change in the front yard setback. No, we're increasing. We're decreasing the front foot. It's going from 51.2 to 50.2. The existing is 51.2.
Going down.
And we're going to 50.2, so it's 1 foot from the existing. And it's a little. You want to describe briefly what that addition is?
If I may. My name's Paul Russo, I'm the architect of the project. The office is at 114 Birch Hill Road in Locust Valley. What I did, I brought a rendering and a photo of what's existing and what's proposed. I think it might be helpful for the board to see that. So what we have is a 1980s house at the time. The owners purchased this home, and some people like this. They personally wanted to change this and make it more of a Hampton style, single style home. And I was charged with the task of basically changing the architecture of this, and by doing so, bringing certain classical elements to this home. And what we were doing is, what he was alluding to, those pieces, those small pieces, really just adding to that sense, to this piece here, this bay window structure that came out closer to the road, not on the ground floor, but just above, just to give it some architectural detail. I mean, the whole house changed. It's a flat roof home, and I would put traditional roof on it. But that's the aspect of that corner of the house. It's only the second story up. It's this and it's the 2 pieces that pop out a foot towards the road.
It doesn't really create any increased habitable space inside. It's really just a bump out for the window.
Specifically one.
Yeah. So that's that variance. The third variance is, side yard variance for roof over entry deck of 18.5 feet, that's labeled as number 3. Again, because of the manner in which the house is being, more modernized or less modernized, whatever the architectural term for it is, it still needs an entrance, and so, we're looking to do a covered entrance and a stair. And so there is a small little 99 square feet of, oh no, that's the stairs. On the side porch is 91 square feet underneath the roof, just to provide an entrance out of the rain. So that's the third variance. The fourth variance is a total side yard of 33.6 when 50 is required, and that's driven by that entry porch, nothing more than that entry porch. Again, not creating their interior habitable space. The fifth one is a rear yard setback of 66.9 feet as opposed to the required 75 feet. And if you look where I pointed at number 7, there is an existing there, a rounded portion of the house, and it's really just being squared off with 4 square feet on either side of the circle. And the one portion of the squared off section is at the 66.9 feet as opposed to the existing setback. Well, the existing setback is 69.9 feet, and by squaring it off, 4 square feet comes to that same setback from the dune.
So it's the same setback.
It's the same exact setback. It's just moved for a couple of feet lateral split.
Okay, move on.
And this sixth one is the sixth and seventh one have to do with the increase in the degree of nonconformity. Since this is a relatively new section of the code, wasn't 100% certain how to express the change, but I guess the easiest way to look at it is that we're adding 13 square feet in the front, which is the sixth variance. That is 1 foot closer to the road than, so it does increase the nonconformity, but at 13 square feet. And then the same thing on the back is those 2 4 square foot sections. So it's a total of 8 feet, which now encroach to a greater degree than what exists. So again, a very small amount of increase in the degree of nonconformity. So a lot of different things, but each component is really pretty small, and most of them are in support of changing the overall architecture of the house, as opposed to creating big house on the lot. And one last way I thought, and the architect created this, to look at this is this little study here. The panel on the left in red shows the outline of the existing envelope. And then the panel in the center shows what is being added. And then the panel on the right shows what is being added outside the existing envelope. And it's mostly decks and other architectural features. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
My understanding that you're not really increasing the nonconformity except for.
We're increasing the nonconformity in 2 areas. In the front yard, we're adding 13 square feet.
Right.
And in the rear yard, we're adding 8 square feet. That's.
And the side yard?
No. Well, That's a different variance, so. That's a different variance that we're looking for. We're just looking for the side yard relief, for that entry porch, basically.
Well, the staircase also, right?
And the staircase, yes, the staircase, the open 4-foot wide staircase leading up to it. Which I think is usually, you're allowed to get up into your house, so that's not usually counted as needing a variance. As long as it's not traditionally, as long as it's 4 feet and it's not a grand, double wide, fancy entry staircase. It usually is not.
4 feet and uncovered in the approach.
4 feet uncovered can't.
What you said.
What you said. Questions, anybody?
Yeah, maybe for the architect, I'm not sure, but, you know, did you look at the house? I assume when they purchased the home that the thought was to, you know, to do this work, you know, when they first purchased the house. They just bought it in the last, year or so, right?
Yeah, they purchased the house a few years ago.
Yeah.
With the intent of redesign.
Yeah.
They love the style and the neighborhood, but the whole subdivision.
It's certainly, I wish I saw that below, it's certainly an improvement, you know, to, the architecture, that's the old architecture in the beach. Was there any thought of working with what you had, instead of, new facades, and fascia, you know what I'm saying?
This is basically their small addition and a roof design that pulled it away from that 80s architecture with all the curves, which they didn't like.
Right.
So I did very minimal things to create a drastic difference on what it looked like. So that's what we did.
Yeah.
This was their intent. They were purchasing us to transform this
It is, it's really.
from this to that.
Yeah.
But it's not a new home, it's actually just a renovation of a home. It's just the skin that we're putting onto it, and the detail of it makes it look, like a home.
Yeah, there's no question about that.
And the only increase in actual habitable space is already covered interior space. The second floor that extends out right now, we're filling in the first floor, and we're filling in underneath that feature doesn't in any way
Right, well, say that again, the increase in habitable spaces is what?
is already covered. With this one. It's basically the space that's under the roof line already.
Okay.
So that doesn't really create the need for any of the variances.
Yeah, our square footage that we're really getting happens to be below all this thin dent to be able to fill that up. It's a unique type of a home that's there now. We really can't have parking, we can't have a front entrance and play with front entrance in the front. Parking is an issue because it's only a 50-foot setback. So we maintain that side entrance that's currently there to the work and the storage there.
And it allows us to create a really nice architectural improvement.
Now, did you include that staircase, you know, on the side, you know, in the calculations, or
this is all true?
The staircase is not,
which
is allowed to encroach.
Yeah, exactly, you could have taken it out.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Think we're all good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brad?
Yeah, sorry, so the deck extension, I wrote my denial based on the architect's plot plan, and I didn't see it just now. It was not advertised for, so the open deck extension on the side, there's 2 variances that we could have. So we'd have to re-advertise it for that.
That's on the east side,
Go
Brad?
back in with that again, Brad?
So my original denial was this, I didn't see the deck as being added, I thought that was existing. It wasn't until I opened this Now I see deck extension, 6.5 feet on the side, and then the setback to the crest of the dune. That was not advertised for that open deck extension on the side.
So we could build it now.
So that's two more variances.
Two more?
Little variance. Well, 16.5 instead of 20 on the side for accessory, and then 30, whatever it is, instead of 75 to the crest of the dune.
Now, the crest of the dune one, the setback back is existing, it's just, we want to.
Right, but you're gonna extend deck.
Yeah.
So it's still,
So it's still, I mean, it's like, no, it's.
Okay. So we'll have to re-advertise for that, maybe we can't do.
Right, yeah, no, that's fine. So if we could, I guess we're bringing it over. Does the building department, Brad, need it, or Megan need anything further from us for that, or? Okay, sorry about that.
Do you need anything?
no, I have it here with
Okay.
this survey, it's just, this happens a lot with, I write a denial and then a new survey comes in, and when I advertise it, it's like, if you don't double check everything, sometimes people like to submit slightly different surveys.
So we'll have to re-advertise it and then we'll just do it next month.
We'll do it next and then we can close it.
Okay.
Yeah, as you said, you wouldn't let us go.
Yeah,
into
the
summer anyway, so-
restrictions anyway, so
Yeah,
I-
get it.
we're not gonna hold you up for that.
We wanted to go for the record next month.
Did you,
Oh, God,
Paul,
that's right.
13 things.
would you like these for the record in some fashion? I mean,
No.
we probably send them to you.
No, we don't want them, thank you, they're beautiful.
It's really.
We have enough junk.
We'll send them digitally.
Yeah, well-
Digitally,
Digital?
yeah,
Oh,
okay?
okay, then that's the one, but we have.
Mhm.
Okay. Those are too big. I mean-
Yeah, we don't want those. Save those for the ARV, Jim.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we're gonna hold this, hearing over to be re-advertised. Second by John, all in favor? Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you, Jim.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right. I'll make a motion that we don't have any extensions or anything we have to do. I'll make a motion to go ahead and close tonight's meeting.
Second.
Second by Jim. Favor? Aye.